Hello everyone and welcome back. Thank you for joining me today for a review of the Me and White Supremacy book. So let's get started. As you can see from the title of today's video, I am going to be reviewing Me and White Supremacy by Layla F Saad. If you don't already have a copy or if you've never heard of this before, then thanks for watching this video. I'm really glad to have you here. And I can't recommend this book enough, basically. I think every human on the world should read it. Every human on the world, in the world, and everyone in the International Space Station need a copy of this. You need a copy of this. Okay, so I first heard about Me and White Supremacy when I saw it being promoted by Liz Gilbert, the author who wrote Eat, Pray, Love and Big Magic? Yeah, it was Big Magic, right? Yeah. I think it was Big Magic. If that's wrong, I'll just edit it here somewhere. And I remember seeing Liz promoting it and thinking to myself, that's kind of like the book I've always wanted to read, but I didn't know that I needed to read it. That's something that I've been interested in. I've always been interested in breaking down racism and equality and justice. I'm a Libran. I'm also a Sagittarius rising, which means that I want justice and I want to do a ton of research about it and philosophize. And I want to think about it a lot. Let's just say that. So when I saw this book, I was like, yes, I'm definitely getting it. I'm going to be completely honest with you, completely transparent. I didn't have the money to buy it when I first saw the book. That is genuinely the truth. I'm tapping to release my money blocks. So I didn't have the money at the time. And then this was, I don't know, several months ago. And then obviously after the tragic, let's be serious for a moment, after the tragic murder of George Floyd, I was like, there's no excuses. I need a copy of this book now. I need to start doing the anti-racist work for myself now so that I can start helping and doing it for the whole of society. That is the kind of pressure that I put on myself. And I went online, I looked at bookshops, it was sold out. I thought to myself, the irony. So instead what I did was I went on to Audible. I've never used Audible before, and this is 100% just me talking about it. I'm obviously not sponsored, let's be real about this. I am not a huge YouTube channel. Yet. I hope to be, but only because I just love talking to you guys. So anyway, I found it on Audible, and because it was the first time I'd used Audible, obviously you get the first month for free and you get a credit, so I got to use the credit on it. I actually really prefer paper copies of books. I've never been the kind of person who enjoys what are they called when you... Oh my gosh, my brain. Can you hear those kids screaming in the background? It's break time and at the school opposite and they're just screaming. Kindle! Oh my god, wow, that took a long time. Yeah, I've never been really a fan of Kindles, probably because I don't travel. I will say that, because I'm aware that when you travel, having a Kindle can be incredibly helpful. But I really prefer a paper copy. I've always loved having a paper copy of books. I love looking at the covers, I love the feel of the pages as you turn them. I'm a real book geek. So yeah, I definitely knew I wanted to buy the book, not just because I wanted to have a physical copy and to be able to feel the pages and sniff the book like a weirdo, but also because I wanted to support the author. I was like, if I'm getting it for free, that is literally the worst example of anti-racist work. The whole point is that you're supporting Black authors, Black business owners, and if I'm getting it for free and doing it for free, that isn't being supportive. That is just... yeah, that's basically an example of all the things about white centering and things like that that Layla actually mentions in the book. So I decided that I would definitely buy the book when it became available. But I have to say, having to do it as an Audible book was probably the best thing ever for me. And if you're somebody who's like me, who isn't very consistent or struggles to see things through, or who reads something and really gets into it, but then afterwards kind of puts it down and is like, well, that was nice, I'm glad I enjoyed that, then doing it as an audiobook is the best thing ever. So I would set aside at least an hour a day and I would sit down, play at least one day from the book, because Layla sorts it into 28 days, and I'll explain that in a moment. And then I would just spend an hour doing that day, and I'd make notes. And I'm not even kidding, I made so many notes. I have this little notebook that I used, and I made so many notes. I actually filled that notebook, which is really cool, by the way. I love filling up a notebook, and it means I can come back to it and read my notes and my interpretations, as well as reading Layla's. So let's get into what the book actually is. Initially, Layla ran this as a 28-day challenge on her Instagram. I will link all of her details below so you can find her and support her and follow her and just soak up the goodness of what she shares. And her work is very much centered around being a good ancestor. I love this concept because who doesn't want to be a good person, but also who doesn't want to be a good ancestor? Because when you're a good ancestor, you get to heal all of the ancestral wounds. Maybe not all of them, that's a bit excessive, but you get to heal ancestral wounds and also create a new chapter for your ancestors to come. So that's really cool. So you're helping people who've come before you, and you're also paving the way for people coming after you. So I love that. I think that's amazing, and I'm really glad Layla has channeled this concept and brought this through. And she also runs a podcast as well, which you can find. I will also put the details below. So the 28-day challenge Layla ran on Instagram was obviously very successful, and then she created a free downloadable ebook workbook to go alongside it, and I think over 100,000 people downloaded it, and then it became a published book. This is really cool. Obviously you can follow Layla to find out more about how this process happened and how she came up with the challenge, but that's the premise of where the book came from. I believe if you live in Europe or the UK, you get the orangey yellow cover, and if you live in America or Canada, then you get the blue cover. On the audiobook, what's really nice is it's broken really clearly down into sections. So you have the introduction, which is welcome to the work, and what it's about broken down really, really nicely. And what's really great as well is that you can pause it to take notes, and you can also go back, re-listen to things, reabsorb things, which I really like. I think I'm quite a quick reader and I have a tendency to skim read things. So actually listening to it, I really had to absorb it and take notes. So I highly recommend doing it that way. As I say, you can either do it for free and then buy the book to still support Layla, or you can use your credit or pay for it via Audible. I haven't looked, I presume it's on audiobooks. I just happened to use Audible because it was the first thing that came into my mind, to be quite honest with you. So it runs as 28 days still, as it did with the Instagram challenge, and that's broken down into 4 weeks. So week 1, you focus on white privilege, white supremacy, understanding what they are. Week 2 is centered around anti-blackness and racist stereotypes. Week 3 is centered around allyship, and week 4 is centered around power, relationships, and commitments. Week 4 is probably the shortest of all of the weeks, and the other 3 weeks are slightly more in depth. At the end of each week, Layla does a review day, so day 7, for example, day 14, day 21. She reviews the week that you've just experienced and gives you further journaling prompts. And she does state that there isn't a day off because BIPOC do not get a day off from racism. And I think that's a really good point she makes, actually. We get to pick and choose when we do this anti-racist work as white people or people with white passing privilege, for example. And therefore you can have a day off. You can take a day off and think, oh, that journaling prompt was intense, I'm going to take a day off. But black people don't have a day off from being murdered or racially stereotyped or tokenized or fetishized. So I really enjoyed week 1 because there was just so much information. Even though I've heard of white supremacy, I've heard of white superiority, I've heard of white saviorism, I've heard of quite a few of the terminologies basically that Layla uses. What she does is gives you an understanding of them, gives you an example of them, and then explains how it might show up. And also she draws upon different examples or different experiences, and she also talks about different research that has been done, and I really like that. It's a really good foundation to start your anti-racist work because there's so much information that Layla shares in a really amazingly detailed way for a short book. I think the Audible book was something like 6 hours, and that's not actually that long really if you think about it. So I definitely recommend doing this. Definitely recommend. So week 1 was really good. It was really interesting, and the journal prompts are really good actually. They are designed to really get to the core of things, to really make you stop and think, and therefore For some people that could be quite heavy and quite intense, and Layla does stress it's important to make self-care a priority. That doesn't just mean having a bubble bath, but it does mean like looking after yourself, mind, body, spirit, you know, emotionally during the time that you're doing the challenge. So I really enjoyed week 1 because I learned so much actually, and I'm still learning obviously. It's not as if I'm going to read one book and then know everything, but it was really, really good. Week 2 I actually found quite emotionally upsetting. It was very difficult learning about some of the things Layla shared, but it's not about my fragility, it's not about me, it's about really absorbing and learning these things so that I can actually do what I can to help dismantle systematic racism. And I'm really mindful of my words here because I'm aware from reading the book and doing the audiobook that white saviorism is a really big thing. That's something that I'm actually going to do a separate video about because that is a very complex topic. I feel as though cultural appropriation, white saviorism, and optical allyship / tokenism are 3 really big topics actually when it comes to anti-racist work. So I will do a separate video for that, so do subscribe if you want to catch up and watch that. But I'm really mindful now that I don't want to come across as being the white saviour or white centering, and at the same time I want to do my part to help dismantle racism. So I'm still kind of learning what I can do without it coming across that I'm being optical or that I'm tokenizing, and without it seeming as though I'm saying, oh look at me, I've got all the answers, I know everything, I'm amazing, I can rescue you and solve everything. So that's the only part where I feel internally conflicted, because I'm the kind of person who really is here to serve and to help other people. This lifetime is very much about how I can serve the world, not so much about me, and therefore that's what I want to be doing. But because I am white and because of my privileges and because of the way that my mindset works, because of how society works, I'm of course ingrained to have this element of white saviorism within me. So that's really something that I'm working on, and I recognize that your intentions are really important, but the thing is, somebody can't always feel your intentions. They aren't always aware of your intentions totally anyway, especially if they don't know you, let's put it that way. If they know you, then they know that your intentions are good. I will go into that in a little bit more detail when I talk about white saviorism in a separate video. So week 3 is all around allyship. I think this was a really interesting week because essentially Layla says that you cannot declare yourself an ally, but you can instead practice allyship, and it's up to BIPOC if they want to call you an ally or not. So if you're walking around saying, I'm an ally, I'm doing anti-racist work, unfortunately that's not how it works. Layla makes it very clear that actually you can only practice it. You can only do your best to really be in that space and embody and become an accomplice, as opposed to, you know, I suppose that's again where white saviorism would come in, you know, look at me, I'm the ally, I'm helping. So again, it's a really fine line and it's something to be really conscious of. And then the 4th week, as I say, that was a lot shorter. I managed to get through the 4th week in a shorter period of time. I really took my time with week 1, 2 and 3 because I really wanted to absorb the knowledge and absorb the information and really journal properly and really go into depth. When it comes to the journal prompts, there is at least 2 to 3 per day, and that includes the review days at the end of each week. And the journal prompts are amazing. You definitely don't want to skip them. You definitely want to get yourself a journal and write them out. In a way, I kind of wish there was space in the book to journal, but having looked at the amount of questions there are, it would be a very big book if that were the case. And maybe that was something that Layla included when she had the free workbook, was some journaling space. But I definitely would have bought a journal to go alongside this because that would have been amazing. I just happened to use that small notebook. As I say, I filled it because I made so many notes. And in all fairness, I started to make fewer notes on the last week only because I was running out of space in my notebook. And I wanted to make sure it all fitted into one book. So I mostly just focused on putting key points that Layla made that I felt struck a chord with me, and putting my journal prompts in there so that they're all in that one space. So each day, as I say, has at least 2 to 3. Some days there are 6 journal prompts. And what was nice about the audiobook is that Layla would say, obviously, the first journal prompt, I could pause it, I could write my answer out, and then I could continue to press play when I was ready for the next journal prompt. So that's a really nice way to do it. I feel as though perhaps if I just read the book, I probably would have written shorter answers. And yeah, I really enjoyed doing it as an audiobook. At the end of the book, at the end of the audiobook, Layla has information and appendix, and she also has information if you'd like to create a Me and White Supremacy sharing circle to support one another as you're going through the process. I think this is fantastic. I definitely recommend reading this, and it's really nice to connect with other people. I was lucky enough that I happened to see a post on Instagram that Layla shared saying that people had been coming to her saying they wanted to connect with other people, or they had been commenting on her posts about connecting with each other when they were reading that other people were doing the journal prompts. And so she set up a separate post for people to connect and find each other, and I was lucky enough to find someone, and I've also found 2 or 3 other people since. And it's really nice because it is definitely very intense work. And I'm really open-minded as a person, so I'm really kind of grateful for that aspect of myself, because I could just be completely open-minded to what Layla's sharing and teaching. It does require some kind of emotional resilience, and I do feel as though I can admit that I have white fragility. I'm quite a fragile person anyway though. I'll be completely honest, I am quite sensitive and I take things in quite deeply, and therefore, I think the next book I might read is White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. I'd be interested to see about that. I've read some mixed reviews on that. Yeah, I think the most important thing is to make your mind up for yourself. So I think actually just create your opinion yourself. Do the research yourself, find out for yourself. So if you've been kind of sitting on the fence about reading this book or listening to this audiobook, I cannot recommend it highly enough, because it just has 28 days worth of goodness in there, and it explains so many different topics: white fragility, white supremacy, white superiority, white centering, white apathy, and it also talks about optical allyship, tokenism, cultural appropriation, which if you watched my video last week, I was explaining about cultural appropriation. Definitely go and catch that up. I haven't quite worked out how to put the I bar up there yet, but I will see if I can. I probably won't be able to. I don't know why I struggle so much with that. Some things technologically I'm great at, and then other things I'm absolutely terrible at. So maybe that's my Libran scales coming in there. But there's just so much information, and it's really, really worth reading it, because it just gives you everything you really need to know as a foundation, and then you can go off and do further research into each topic in your own way. So I definitely recommend that. And at the end of the book, there are also a list of resources and tons of books that Layla recommends, podcasts, things like that. So again, you're really going to want to get this book because it's just a fantastic resource in itself, and at the same time it has so many other resources it recommends, so it's really, really worth reading. So I will definitely look to redo the 28-day challenge at least once a year, and I'm going to say at least once a year because I have no idea what's obviously happening for the next 6 months to a year to 10 years of my life. So therefore it might be that I do it every 6 months. Be fantastic to do that. Layla even recommends actually that you do that, and I think that's worth it, because you're going to go through different experiences in your life, you're going to change your viewpoint, you're going to grow as a person. So coming at the journal prompts from a new perspective or a new experience is going to be really powerful, definitely. So I really recommend getting the audiobook for the first time at the very least, so you can really absorb it and take notes, and then buying the book to support Layla, and at the same time to have a copy forever that you can really come back to. And even then, even if you just went to the journal prompts, no doubt that you would go to a journal prompt and think, wait a minute, I can't remember what that was about, and then go back and read that chapter. So if you're reading this book, or if you've read it, please do let me know in the comments below. I would love to connect with you and hear how you enjoyed the book, and I will see you in next week's video.